Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Mindfuel, where we are making mental fitness accessible to endurance athletes so you can train your brain as consciously as you train your body. Today, we're diving into confidence and more specifically, the power of self talk. And joining us for this discussion is mental performance coach Natasha Habert. Tasha, welcome to Mindfuel.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Laura.
So good to have you. As our audience knows, we start every episode here by asking our guests to introduce themselves, not by telling us what they do, but first by explaining who they are. So, how would a friend or partner or family members describe you?
I love the question. Yeah, the first gut reaction to that would be just someone that you have in your corner. I feel like there's always been that supportive coaching side to me. So that would be one part of it. And the other part is someone who's always been passionate about performance, health, fitness, wellness, all the things. That's always stayed true to me from early age. So good friends and passionate about health.
Knowing you for a few years now, I can definitely attest to both of those things being very, very true. And
Appreciate
can
it.
you tell us a little bit more about your relationship to sport?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my background's actually playing competitive volleyball. I did get into running at a small level, not an endurance sport, but unfortunately, some injuries that lingered are going to keep me away from running for the time being. But, anyways, sport background definitely in volleyball. And that had opened my eyes to just how important the mindset is. And so that ultimately had me pursue mental performance coaching. And here we are today.
Uh, What does your coaching look like these days?
Yeah. So I've got clients and athletes of all different sports and ages. I'd say primarily I work with athletes who are in the recruitment process or just getting started at the university level. But obviously, my primary sport, I'd say volleyball, but I get to work with all kinds of different sports: golf, basketball, baseball, softball, the whole mix. So it's very, very rewarding.
Really cool. And such a reminder that the mental side is important in all endeavors and really
Yes.
does port across the different sports. And your expertise has been so integral actually to shaping Mindfuel. So, for our viewers, Natasha and I met a few years ago via other professional endeavors. And when I found out she was a sports psychologist, she lent me some time to talk through this idea. And actually, the 5 fuel groups were refined in partnership with Natasha. So thank you very much. And I'm sure our audience thanks you as well, because it's a huge part of what makes Mindfuel work and make it accessible to athletes. And
Of
I think
course.
something that stands out to me from all those conversations that we had is your passion around confidence and that as
No.
a key pillar to mental performance and something that we can actually train. I think even more specific than that, and I said this earlier, we wanted to dive into self talk because even
Mhm.
some of the tips you've given me, I've really used in my own running primarily, and it's been really helpful. So I think the audience would benefit hugely from hearing more from you on that. And I think where I'd like to start is the fact that many athletes aren't even really aware of probably the tone or the content of their self talk, whether that's during training or racing, probably life as well, but we'll try and keep this
Yeah.
focused on sport. So, how can someone start becoming more conscious of that inner voice, especially in a high pressure situation?
Absolutely. I would agree that a lot of athletes might not have that full awareness. And I think that's where it always starts. It's always awareness and then regulation. So, as much as athletes can do just breaking down their self talk, I like to frame it less about positive versus negative, but more like productive versus unproductive. And we have a lot of unproductive thoughts that linger and creep in. And sometimes that contributes a lot to the feelings of us being stuck or low confidence. So, I think awareness around where our thoughts are taking us. What are some of those most common thoughts that are weighing us down? And then once we start observing, tracking those, journaling those, and then obviously the work comes in. How do you reframe? How do you move out of those ones that are holding you back, some of those limiting beliefs, and change it into either more motivating, highlighting that you're capable, refocusing for the next time or the next future event? So there's a lot of work you can do around self talk, but it definitely starts with awareness first and understanding what really is getting in your own way.
So, it sounds like having that reflection when you're not in the moment is the first step. If we're then in the moment and it starts to slip into that unproductive train of thought, how
Right.
How does that actually influence us, I don't know, psychologically, physically, and what can that do to performance?
Yeah, our thoughts, feelings, and actions definitely all link together and they influence each other. So, obviously, if you're in a negative headspace, the feelings will shift and then our actions will shift in terms of your performance. So, it's always good to be able to catch it in the moment. If you can build awareness afterwards, that's definitely a good start. Right? Okay, where was my mindset today? And then you'll start noticing that coming more into the moment, like during training sessions or during long runs. And we often refer to it as like thought stopping. Like once you catch it, whether a lot of typical ones would be like, I can't, or I have to, or I need to. Once you catch those taglines that your worst self or kind of your negative headspace most commonly uses, you're able to kind of adjust out of it. But yes, a lot of awareness afterwards that then carries over more and more as we can regulate it in the moment in training. But thoughts, feelings, and actions definitely all influence each other. And at CEP Mindset, we talk a lot about who you are at your best, right? We all have like a best self who's very confident in the moment, that flow state. And then everyone has a worse self, right? So maybe low confidence, negative, dwelling, critical. And so a lot of that negative self talk just comes out with your worst self. And you're trying to build strategies to go back towards your best self. But hopefully that wasn't too much. But
No,
yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. And I like the way at the end you frame that is getting back toward your best self. So there's a
Mhm.
spectrum, and you talk a little bit about it's not like maybe it's not necessarily, or I'm understanding it's not necessarily that you're switching from, being in a really unproductive state to immediately super productive, but maybe you can get somewhere in between that at least takes a bit of that pressure off.
Absolutely. I think for any elite athlete, you know it's so hard to switch your mindset like that. And I think there's a power in understanding, okay, catching that negative headspace, right? We talked about a little bit of that thought stopping and awareness. Then it's how do I get less negative? How do I move a little bit away from that? Less dwelling, less negative, less doubt, even to a neutral headspace, right? Of, hey, I'm struggling right now, but that doesn't mean I'm in a moment of failure, or that doesn't mean I don't have these capabilities or they're lost. And then, of course, yeah, if you can then shift more into that productive side. But I think any athlete can attest it's really hard to make that switch fast. As long as you're making it gradually, then you'll get better and better and more efficient with it. But yeah, it starts off with less negative self talk, less doubt, and then more confidence, more productive thoughts.
Does identity play a role here at all? Like almost
Yeah.
disassociating from like, this is hard. No, I am bad at this. I am not a good athlete, but this is a really hard workout, something of that nature.
Absolutely. That's a great part of self talk is sometimes with to call out kind of one first point, with self-talk, we can put our performance and our identity very linked, right? If we're having a poor training session, we're not feeling up to our best, we might feel like that associates us with failure. So definitely distinguishing the identity versus the performance. They do go hand in hand, so it's a bit of a catch-22 because if you have a strong athletic identity, it does lead to high performance, but we want to be able to draw that line. So we talk a lot about as athletes you want to be very driven, but you equally have to have part of your mindset as a little bit detached. And not in a negative connotation, but in a way of you have to have a little bit of detachment, which helps us accept the range of our performance. It helps us let go of a bad training session or maybe a bad part of a race or something we're dwelling on. And all in all, we want to make sure we keep enjoying the thing that we're doing. And that's a big part of it too. So if the identity is success and failure, it's a very stressful mindset versus I'm a driven athlete, I'm struggling right now. Those can both be true.
Yeah, that's a great point. And actually, as you were talking, I was thinking we're focusing so much on the negative because I suppose that's a primary challenge that a lot of us want to overcome. But maybe we also need to flip this and talk about the power of when you are in the zone. And you just said, well, if I am a good athlete, I can perform highly. I can't remember your exact words, but actually attaching the positive to your identity could be
Mhm.
powerful. So maybe we need to look at the other end of the spectrum. And when you're in the zone and having really positive self talk, is there any reason why you would need to question that, or do you just use it and go with it?
Yeah, absolutely. That positive, productive self-talk is amazing for you being in your best self or in the zone. It's all about finding some self-talk you always believe to be true, right? Because we have a bit of that filter on what do we really believe. And if you come back to something that's like, I am a strong athlete, I am capable, I am resilient. And that's why that positive affirmation is so important. But yeah, that would be linked more to identity. Yeah, if you find one that you can believe 100 out of 100 times, then that's going to help keep you in that headspace. I would say a couple other ones that I love instead of the have to or I need to and the pressure that we sometimes put on ourselves as athletes, just I want to, I will, I'm going to. And so the goal could be the same, but there's such a power in shifting quite literally maybe just one word because the tone of what we're saying to ourselves holds so much power. So, yes, we can definitely use self-talk to play into our identity and play into where we're capable. But yeah, I would say one takeaway is finding really what positive or productive self-talk works for you. That's going to be everything because you're going to be able to filter, I'm not quite believing this right now. Obviously, what works for someone might not work for you.
Yeah. And outside of training or racing, how do you work with your athletes on kind of building a routine of intentionally training this? I think you mentioned journaling earlier. Do you have any other tips for practical use
Yeah.
of this?
Yeah, that's a great call out. Obviously, we don't want to just think about how we're doing. We do want to have some type of tracking and accountability. So I would say journaling is number one. And there's definitely a power to writing things out and having that in front of you. We typically, how we work with our athletes is just documenting some of those negative self talk or the unproductive side. Understanding why it came out, right? Because you really kinda wanna understand what are the triggers that are pushing you into that mindset or influencing you into that mindset. And so we try to understand, like, is that when doubt creeps in? Or is that some type of situation or interaction with someone else? Is that when comparison creeps in? So there's always a deeper layer that guides that self-talk. So we definitely wanna dig into that. And then a lot of it with self-talk is how do we reframe back to what I said of something you can recommit to? The negative beliefs, the limiting beliefs are going to creep in. There's a lot of acceptance as an athlete of it's not about never having those thoughts again. It's really about minimizing and being able to switch out of them more efficiently. But yeah, in terms of journaling, that's the number one thing that elite athletes will do across sports to build awareness and then keep digging into like, why are these still coming up? And there might be one or two really clear limiting beliefs that everything's tying back to.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. And do you see consistency across athletes on the themes of what those limiting beliefs typically are? And if so, can you share some of those and then some of
Yeah.
the ways that you negate them with your clients?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'd say there definitely are some themes across sports, ages, athletes. I'd say the two that come out the most would be some feeling of I can't. And there's either doubt or it could be stemming from frustration, like I can't do this, right? There's a big theme there. And the other one that I alluded to is the I have to and I need to. This is language that is used in sport all the time, right? Especially team sport. You'll be in a huddle and unintentionally a coach will be like, hey, we need to play better. We can't be making these mistakes. We have to get out of this situation, right? So that's sport language we use all the time. And we bring that into our athlete mindset. So I'd say those are some of the top ones. So either doubting what we're capable of, which is I can't, or adding unnecessary pressure, which is I have to or I want to. So those would be some of the big things. And we really try to switch them over to, like I said, some self talk that they can commit to. So it could be I can or I am, back to the identity, something you believe about yourself to be true 100% of the time. Or like I said, the most powerful one is I have to, I need to, into I want to. That should be true 100 out of 100% of the time too. I want to perform better. I want to hit these times. I want to go have a great training session. So removing the pressure can definitely ease the weight. And when we think about any athlete in like a positive headspace, it's a lighter experience. It's not that heavy pressure, doubt, like those things really weigh us down. We want to be more productive and have that lighter experience. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does, and it resonates a lot, and I think particularly for me, the one of I want to versus I have to, I need to. I was just reflecting the first time that I worked with a running coach. Suddenly, I was like, "Oh, I'm given the workouts. I have to do these. I have to hit the times. I have to please the coach." And I lost completely the why was I there? What was fun
Yeah.
about it? And if I was programming my own, often it was like, "Ooh, that's gonna be a stretch. I wonder if I can do that." It was like a healthy curiosity and, "Oh, if I can't, that's cool. Like, I
Yeah.
will still be pushing myself and I'll get fitness gains from that and I'll be faster for the race." And I quickly learned, and actually the coach said to me at some point, like, "Calm down, Laura. Like, it's about the spirit of the workout. And some days you're not
Yeah.
going to hit the times. And sometimes I give you times I'm not sure that you can hit because we want to see where you are. And that's the journey." And that reframe was super important to me so that at times when I was struggling in a workout, I could just say, it's the spirit of it. I'm gaining fitness. That's the purpose.
Yeah, I love that. The spirit of the workout, I like that language in terms of back to what you kind of mentioned earlier, like being in the process as much as we can with working with athletes. And it's easier said than done. We know that. It's very hard when you're in that competitive athlete, competitive mindset. But the process and putting your mindset first is all about what we talk about within CP. If we're chasing results, we're chasing the success, we're getting obsessive, it does lead to a roller coaster of thoughts, feelings, and actions. Obviously, more consistency is I'm doing this because I want to, I'm doing this because I get to. And we like that language a lot too. Like, I get to do this workout today. That might not work every single time if our
Sure, sure.
motivation is low. Again, we can use a lot of neutral self-talk. It doesn't always have to be on the positive, productive side. But yeah, when you said the spirit of the workout, just embracing the process, right? We don't train so hard just to do one race. We train so hard to maintain our level of fitness and keep elevating where possible. So it's like if we get so fixated on just one outcome, that is going to be hard on our motivation.
Totally. Well, and I mean, endurance is a long game, right? Like,
Yeah.
no, we can't go from nothing to a marathon overnight. And sometimes chasing, certain distance goals or working up from a sprint triathlon to an Ironman, that is a many years long process. And actually, I think in every single one of the interviews that we've done at Mindfuel, in some way, the focus on the journey, not the destination, has come up. So
Yeah.
clearly an important theme and something that we all need to continue to embed. And maybe that's one of the first things that we ask ourselves when we're feeling down, no matter the situation, is like, why am I here? What purpose is this serving in the journey, not specifically for some near term
Yeah.
goal?
Yeah, I love everything there. The why of why we're doing this is always very important, especially if we're in a period where our motivation drops or we're feeling a bit more defeated or low confidence. But yeah, the process is where that sustainability comes. If we're always chasing a certain number, a certain outcome, there's going to be friction in that along the way. Absolutely.
I think a lot of us have people around us who can help hold us accountable to focusing more on the journey and being a bit kinder to ourselves. And not everyone has the benefit of a sports psychologist. Part of the reason we're here with Mindfuel to try and kind of
Yeah.
democratize that. But generally, we have coaches or teammates, training partners, friends, family members who understand, what it is that we're aiming for. And I'm just wondering, how can those folks help support us without maybe sounding too overly positive or dismissive of an athlete's real emotions? I'm thinking, someone coming home from a really tough training session. Oh, I just missed all the numbers today. I'm so down. And just that typical response that might come, no matter how true it is, might sound a bit canned, like, "Oh, you'll get it next time," or, "Oh, it was just one workout." So, do you have some advice for how folks who aren't as trained in this, but very much around athletes can help? And or what do we as athletes need to ask some of those people or inform them of to really support us on this?
That's such a powerful question. I've got a couple thoughts. I think first and foremost, I do want to normalize that competitive mindset is going to fixate a little bit on what I could have done better, where I fell short, how it didn't reach our expectation. And I think a lot of time competitive athletes resonate with perfectionism, right? There's that perfectionism that drives athletes. And so that can actually be a very misunderstood experience when you're in the athlete shoes of when people are saying and they come from a positive place, but when they are saying, "You'll get it, it's just one workout, it's no big deal," as an athlete, you can feel very misunderstood because
Mm.
you're not speaking the same language. "No, this really did have some weight over me," or "I am feeling disappointed." So, just calling that out and normalizing it, fair enough. When we think about working with competitive, if not some perfectionistic athletes, those two go hand in hand a lot of times. There's a lot of parts of perfectionism that's great, motivating you to achieve your goals, really continuing to put in the work. On the other hand, there's sometimes is fixating on where you fell short, sometimes never feeling like it's good enough, being a little bit excessively
I wouldn't
critical.
know anything about those
Right? I'm
feelings.
sure there's a lot of your audience that can resonate with those because if you're competitive, it comes with that double-edged sword of perfectionism. But anyways, I would say it's understanding as an athlete for yourself, there's got to be some perspective. And that's what's so important in mental performance. So for someone in your social circle, someone on your social support side, letting them have that space to get out their thoughts, not jumping to a solution, not
Mm.
jumping to your, like their own perspective of it. I think there's a power of holding the space and asking, how do you want me to show up for you right now? Do you need me to listen? Do you need support? Do you need strategy? Do you need challenge? And I think over time, an athlete can develop really strong relationships with those people in their circle by being very direct on, no, this is kind of what I'm asking more from this interaction. So much we assume we're helping. But again, if the athlete is dwelling, fixating, and we're throwing positivity at them, or we're trying to force them to have perspective too soon, it puts resistance.
Wall goes up and it's never going to go through.
Yeah. So
That's great
obviously
advice.
it's,
I mean, I guess it kind of transcends sport. That's probably true in many situations where there's a lot of emotion involved. The first question that we can ask as friends and supporters is, "What do you need from me right now?" or "How can I
yeah,
support you in this moment?" But I think that's such a lot of people don't know that. And so as athletes, it's also something that we can ask like, "Hey, when I come home and I'm in a state, please can that be the first thing that you ask me?" I think we have to do a bit of coaching and asking for what we need as well.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think as athletes, taking ownership of what's your process to decompress after
Mm.
uh, a quote unquote bad run, bad training session, something that didn't fill to your standard. What is your process to almost like a post performance routine when it doesn't go well? What is your way of processing that, letting go of it? Because for a lot of athletes, we ruminate in it. We stay in it for hours or some days, like sometimes it lasts way longer than we benefit from, obviously. We want to learn from it. We want to understand, hey, what's the lesson here? But a lot of athletes, because we're so competitive and that perfectionism drives us to stay in it. What helps you as an athlete work through that? And I think back to one thing I love, it's an activity we do with so many athletes, is that driven versus detached. What are strategies for you as a competitive runner to detach? Just a small, healthy dose, right? We're not trying to overly detach, but what are those strategies? So that's something that's really helpful for athletes to figure out kind of on an individual basis.
Makes sense. I'm also sitting here thinking, isn't it funny how, for many of us, when we hit our goal or our PB, we'll take 5 seconds to celebrate and then we're already on to the next thing. But if we don't, we sit and we ruminate, we ruminate, we ruminate. So maybe there's a bit of wisdom here too from you of like equal opportunity reflection and really
Yeah.
taking time if we aren't celebrating and saying these are the things that we think went right and we want to repeat and really foster. Equally, the things that we don't want to repeat and just letting those go,
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
powerful.
I love that call out. It's just as important to understand when you have a great training session, what was going on, where was my self-talk, all the different mental and physical pieces, and then the main goal is recreating that success, right? It's all about recreating success, and then obviously when something feels like it falls short, we wanna learn from it, we wanna decompress through it, but what's the adjustments I wanna make? It's not about beating yourself up over something you can't change anymore and just being critical or dwelling. So much of it is just, what's the lesson? Okay, apply that next time. But yeah, absolutely. We don't sit in our success long. It's always on to the next, but we definitely sit in our quote unquote when we feel like we fail for too long. It's hard to let go.
We're so predictable.
I know.
So this has been amazing. If you could leave us with one succinct thought about confidence to close us out, what would it be?
Yeah, I think confidence, it can't just be tied to results and success. There's so much we can do with confidence in terms of leaning on our coaches, thinking about our preparation as a source of confidence, how much we've continued to grow and master and progress in our sport. So, confidence can be pulled from many different things. We have to challenge that part of us where confidence is directly tied to success because as we know, as athletes, success is going to have some pits and ups and downs, right? And then self talk is one of those strategies towards sustainable confidence. We want to be very intentional about reframing and going back to certain beliefs that we know can be true and are true. But it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work and maintenance, and it's not something you check a box off. It's something you commit to. And that's why being in that process mindset is so powerful.
Same as the physical training, right? Just
Exactly,
another
exactly.
element that we need to add to our overall holistic plans.
Mhm.
Thank you for all of this wisdom, Natasha. If people want to connect with you, learn more from you, where can they find you?
Absolutely. I'd say primarily just find me on LinkedIn, Natasha Habert, last name Habert. Would love to connect with any and all of you in the sport worlds. And I'm also part of the CP Mindset coaching team. We're growing a lot. So cpmindset.com, give us a shout there. And my email is natasha at cpmindset.com if you want to reach out that way.
And we'll put all of those contact details on our website in the experts section, as we always do. And also, I'll put
Awesome.
a few links down below in the show notes. So, Natasha, thank you again so much. And to all of you for joining us, thank you. If this has resonated, please like the video and subscribe to our channel so we can keep creating great content to support your training. Any follow up comments or questions, you can put them directly on the episode or email us at connect@mindfuel.fit. And reminder, if you haven't already, to check out the other content here as well as on our website, which is mindfuel.fit. You can also subscribe to our mailing list there and stay up to date on what's going on at Mindfuel. Tasha, thank you again. And to all of you, thank you for joining and happy and healthy training. See you soon.